Hey there, I am Canada Chris. I'm 36 years old. I lived in Canada my entire life. I was born there. My wife is Serbian that I met in Canada. She was born in Canada, but all of her family and parents are Serbian. We've recently moved back to Serbia as a result of her and I choosing to be with family. We've decided to come back. So here I am now in Serbia, and I've enlisted ChatGPT to give me a whole bunch of questions about Canadian daily life and culture and things like this so that I have something to talk about. And the next thing, which I think is probably the one that I'm most interested in talking about, is how does the food culture differ between Canada and Serbia? The reason I'm interested in talking about this one is ultimately because it is the one that I'm the most involved in and the one that is probably the biggest difference that I am happy about. It's been a very large positive, and I really want to talk about it because I'm excited. Okay. I'm a meat eater. In Canada, meat is very expensive. And it's really nice to be in a place where we prioritize, eating fat and eating meat and not being afraid of, that type of stuff. Whereas in Canada, it's like, people are very afraid of eating fat for some reason. They think that they're going to get fat if they eat fat, and that's not how it works. But anyways, so it's been really enjoyable because I get to have meals that I enjoy, and then at the same time, like it's the stuff here is so different. Like, okay, chicken's chicken and pork is pork, but how you prepare meals here comes from like tradition and the babas and all their old recipes and stuff and all of this food that everybody's making, which is a part of like their household and their culture and them growing up. And it's been amazing. It's been really amazing. So now, meat is obviously one conversation because I'm a meat eater and I love meat. So like obviously like chavapi's fantastic, right? Sometimes we go for like some like grilled chicken and stuff like this, and how much meat and food in general there is available on the streets is a really huge thing. I can go out in Varacha and go anywhere I want, and within a 2 minute walk, every 60 seconds or whatever, there's a place where I can stop and I can go get a little snack or a small meal or a coffee and things like this. And that culture is not available in Canada. It doesn't work like that. Restaurants are inside of malls. Restaurants are very far apart and extremely expensive. For the majority of the meals that I'm eating here, especially the buffet, like a breakfast buffet that I had when I first got here a couple weeks, 3 weeks ago. I think it was the first place that I ate, and it absolutely blew me away. I couldn't even understand how it was capable of happening, the whole experience that I had. So I think it was in Varacha. I'm not 100% sure. I know I walked out and to the east a little bit towards Bayo Center, and then we kind of like went north up the hill. And there was this like buffet breakfast place, and we didn't quite know what it was, so we just kind of walked in. And Bella and I just kind of walked in, and it's very weird for us because here in Belgrade, like every time that you want to go eat somewhere, you just kind of like walk in and sit down, and then eventually like a server comes and they'll start with the drinks and then take a food order type thing. But it's not like that in Canada. You got to go and you got to wait and you got to see if you can be seated and so on and so forth. So being able to just kind of like walk in and sit down, choose a table, it was like very like liberating. I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm bad, just like walking and sitting down. So we go in and we sit down. The place was absolutely fantastic. I made a TikTok of it, so I'm sure I could figure the name. But it had all kinds of like glass cabinets with like booze in it and stuff, and pictures and all kinds of paraphernalia and like things to look at and pictures and the chairs in Serbia are all like couch chairs most of the time or actual couches. There's a lot of like benches and things like this, and like velveted benches, with cushions and stuff like this. And it was just like, in my in like some kind of like 5-star super restaurant or something. Like I felt like a king. I was like, this is gonna be crazy expensive. We're probably not allowed to be here. I don't know if there's like a dress code or something. And on top of that, you can sit back and light up a smoke. So I was like, okay, I'll act like a king and see what the fuck happens. I was very blown away. So of course we're sitting there and we're waiting for a server to come over this time, but we didn't realize that it was a buffet, right? So anyways, there was a bit of a story and some confusion and stuff, and I ended up realizing that you can go and you can just get your meal, and then because of the way that it's priced, it's just like, you pay for the buffet and you can go get food. So anyways, we went and we got some food, and it was like there was like 15, 20 different things, and there was like eggs cooked in all kinds of different ways, and there was like mashed eggs and fried eggs and sunny side up eggs, and there was all these different types of meats and potatoes and cheeses and creams, and I was just like, oh my god, I'm gonna get a fucking heart attack, like this is crazy. Anyway, so we ate like royalty, and it was something that if you had experienced that in Canada, you'd be looking at, and I'm gonna try to be nice here and not, you know, inflate what I'm about to say. 40, a minimum, a bare minimum of $40 per plate is what that would have cost, in my opinion, for the food and for some of the atmosphere. If I wanted to be kind of a little bit more optimistic about it, a little bit more truthful about it, I'd say like $60 a plate. So going to a place like that would have cost Belle and I, 120, $150, because drinks are not included in any of this stuff in Canada, and a coffee is like $7. A glass of beer is like $15. So $15 is like, how do we do the calculations? Be 1,000 dinar is like $10, so it'd be like 1,500 dinar for like one drink. So if you have two drinks, that's 3,000 dinar. And then the meal would be 40, $50. So there's another, 4 or 5,000 dinar. So for a single person to eat in that restaurant, I would be expecting, in my Canadian mentality, to pay somewhere upwards after tax and tip, because tip is not included in these prices, and tax is not included in those prices. Tax is 15%, and your tip is like 15%, I guess. 10 is low, 20 is high. So like 8,000 dinar or something. I think we paid like 1,200 dinar, I think. So it was like a fifth of the price. Anyways, blew my mind. So with there being so much meat available and meat eating people here, with there being so much food available in the city, outside of the city, the outskirts, all these restaurants, all these bakeries and these cafes, and everybody's making food, enjoying food, and everything's fresh, everything's new. These fruit that we have here, apples and orange, pear, kiwi, and tomato, they actually look like the fruit was kind of like picked off a tree, which is kind of nice. Whereas everything in Canada, yeah, sure, like maybe it visually like looks cleaner or nicer because it's all like waxed, and they're, everything's colored and bleached and things like this. But this looks like real fruit, and I know it's kind of like a silly thing to say, but it kind of makes our fruit look like plastic. Like it kind of looks like fake. And then the other thing is that everything seems to be kind of like more real and more fresh, especially the bakeries and the breads and the little shops that we get, some of that morning food from. So you go and you get a loaf of bread, and it lasts a day, 2 days, like depending on how you're storing it and if you're being appropriate with your food storage. So it's been quite a big difference. In Canada, people just spend so much time looking, at like boxed food because it's cheap, cereals and chips and like things that you just kind of like stick in the oven and then you pull it out of the oven. Like there's no cooking involved. It's not real cooking. And I I make my own bread. I know how to make bread. I knead it by hand. I can make pizza and pizza doughs and things like this, and buns and stuff. Like I like making flour, related things. And I rise it myself, and I do it all by hand, and I put it in the oven, and I make my bread. So this stuff that we eat here is very much like what my grandmother taught my mother, who taught me how to make our bread, right? So that's been really nice because it feels like home kind of thing, and I like that. So yeah, so that's my take on food. I've got a lot more to say, but I'm going to keep this at the 10 minutes, so we'll catch you on the next one.